Welcome back to another edition of Beyond the Cage. I'm your host, Jim Graham. Joining me on the line, we have a special guest. She is fresh off her victory at Invicta 14. She is Andrea KGB Lee. And Andrea, thanks for joining me on the show this week.
Well, thank you for having me tonight.
All right, the first thing I want to ask you about your fight here against Rachel Ostovich. In this fight, she wore her, usual Wonder Woman outfit. Are you kind of a fan of girls wearing kind of stuff like that? Also, you had Rosa Ostovich wear the cat singlet. Are you kind of a fan of maybe some of these more colorful outfits these girls are wearing here for Invicta?
You know, I like it. It shows, it shows who you are. It's your character. It expresses yourself. And, I express myself with my KGB uniform. I get mine personalized before every fight. And it's something that we get to do. And really, you think about it, it's actually an honor to be able to do that now, considering, there's some promotions that are going to, uniforms. So glad I don't got to wear a uniform right now. But I think it's a good thing.
All right. I saw on your Instagram page that you had your official Andrea Lee KGB T-shirt, and I think the thing said it was a limited time, but I wanted to ask if any of our listeners, if they still wanted a T-shirt, are they still able to purchase one?
Oh, certainly. I still have a few left, and I'm probably going to go and place another order because I've had such a high volume of people ordering T-shirts and hoodies. So if people are still interested, just let me know. Right now I don't have a lot of the 2X's, so I got to place that order. So I'll be getting to that very soon.
All right, looking at the fight specifically, obviously her game plan probably was to try to get you to the mat and try to turn it into a grappling match, and for her that didn't really go her way, as you were able to keep things standing, really pick her apart with your excellent Muay Thai striking, and then kind of towards the end where it seemed like she had not only started to fade with her conditioning but taken a lot of beating from you, you took it to the ground yourself and finished her off with the armbar. Was that the game plan, to keep it upright, and then if you saw an opportunity like you did, take it down to the ground?
Yes, it was. I wanted to display my wrestling skills. I wanted people to know that I was, well-rounded. So, yes, the game plan was to keep it standing, and then when I felt like the time was right, or when my coach felt like the time was right, we would take it down. So, and that's what we did, and it ended up being, well-played game plan.
Now, in this fight, I think maybe due to desperation or maybe just conditioning, like I said, her conditioning started to fade there. She threw a lot of very unorthodox strikes, and did she injure you or hurt you at all with any of those crazy back fists and stuff she was trying?
It definitely did catch me off guard, and I should have known that she was going to be throwing some spin back fists because she made a post on her pages about, wanting to a spin back fist knockout. But, they did not hurt me. Her kick to the head, it didn't hurt me, and the spin back fist didn't hurt me. It caught me off guard, and it stung me, but it didn't rock me or anything. So I was able to push through it. There was a time when she caught me with a spin side kick that caught me in the ribs. That hurt a little bit, and that was the one that I actually felt later in the round. I thought that, I forgot she had spin side kicked me, and I started, loading up, twisting my torso as I'm throwing my round kicks or going to the body. And anytime I throw a hook, I could feel a pull in my ribs, and I'm like, oh, I must have pulled a muscle or something. I must have strained something. And then it wasn't until the next day when I was having to be pulled out of bed that I remembered that she caught me with a side kick. Oh, it was a side kick. I did not pull a muscle. She caught me with that side kick. So that was the only one that actually hurt me.
Now, one technique you use in this fight that I really love, and I wish fighters would use it more, use the axe kick to opponent on the ground to the body, and that is one of my favorite techniques, and I don't know why more people don't use it. It's obviously something you did in this fight, and is this something that you have been actively working on?
Well, I don't work it. I do train the axe kick. I do work my axe kick, whenever I'm hitting mitts and, every now and then when I'm sparring, I'll work the axe kick, but I've never done it to somebody who was on the ground. But I've always thought to myself, you know, if I ever end up in that position, if my opponent's ever in the position and they're trying to play that, you know, like guard game, then I'm going to axe kick them. And, you know, I got the opportunity. I was like, yes, you know, I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to see how this works. Because I mean, you know, I'm a body hunter. And an axe kick to the body, I'm like, that's going to hurt her, and then the rest of the fight's going to be easy for me because all I got to do is keep going back to the body. And so that's what I did. And it worked out well.
Well, I applaud you for your efforts. It was great. They captured it. I believe you posted on your Instagram. It's on Invicta's Instagram and Facebook with you throwing that axe kick, and I absolutely loved it. It was great. That was the moment of the fight for me. Getting to the finish, though, however, kind of an odd finish because you're there, you're in the armbar, you see her, you don't see the tap, and then all of a sudden it kind of stops. Then John McCarthy kind of comes in. I thought the round had ended because they already had taken away the visual clock, and then you hear the horn, you're like, well, I obviously knew you won. You were definitely going to get a decision, and then all of a sudden, you know, when they raise your hand, you get the armbar. Did you already know you were getting the armbar victory, or did you not realize that she had verbally tapped to that?
No, I knew. I heard her. That's why I let go. Because if I hadn't have heard her, because she couldn't tap. If I had not have heard her, I wouldn't have let go, and I would have kept on bridging into her arm for the next 2 seconds. But, you know, my coach, everybody in my corner was like yelling, break her arm. And I'm like, I don't really want to break her arm, but I was like, I'll bridge. You know, I'm going to bridge until, you know, she taps. And then, you know, she yelled out, and I let go immediately because, you know, I didn't want John McCarthy to, like, yank me up by my neck or anything. But, yeah, I knew she had tapped. I didn't realize that the rest of the people didn't hear her tap because it was pretty loud to me.
Bounce back win for you after fighting Roxanne, and obviously you took that fight against short notice against Roxanne. She was victorious, I believe, just the fight after yours. Is that a fight you'd like to run back, or are you looking to take on somebody else for your next fight?
You know, I'm down to fight whoever it is that they give me. You know, I want to fight for the world title, and so whoever I have to fight to get there, you know, I'm willing to do that. And I really like Roxanne. And we're actually becoming pretty cool friends. But, you know, it's all business. And, you know, Rachel and I are, you know, friends somewhat. I mean, you know, we're not like, you know, like best buddies. We talk all the time or anything. But I mean, like, we're nice to each other. And, you know, we talk to each other through social media. So fighting her was like fighting a friend. So if I had to fight Roxanne again, I would, you know, because if that's what they wanted us to do.
Now, there were a lot of great fights at Invicta 14. You had a lot of good performances besides yours. Any other fight that kind of caught your eye?
Well, I was in the back most of the time, and I didn't really get to watch all of the fights. I really liked, you know, I got to catch Roxanne's. I got to catch most of her fight right after mine. She did very good. And then I saw Tanya Evinger's, you know, and that was a pretty good fight too. But those are the only ones that I caught. But I did actually go back and watch the footage, and I don't know what I'm thinking. But I really liked watching Sharon Jacobson's fight. That was really good. And so was my other friend Jamie Frey's fight. They did, you know, they both did extremely well.
Now, one of the big headlines coming out of Invicta 14 was the retirement of Katja Kankampa, former Invicta FC champion, right after a very close loss against Deanna Bennett. Did that kind of surprise you to hear Katja announce her retirement from the sport?
Yeah, I was not expecting that. You know, I figured that, you know, she'd want to go out with a win, so I figured, you know, I wasn't expecting her to do any kind of retiring anytime soon. But I mean, if you retire, I would expect her to want to retire on a win. So I would have assumed that, you know, or expect her to fight again and then retire. But it is what it is. She already had it in her mind that she wanted to retire. It was definitely a surprise to me.
Now, speaking of cool, after the fight, there was a little exchange between you and current UFC lightweight #1 contender, the Cowboy, Donald Cerrone, where he invited you to train out at his ranch there in New Mexico. And was that something, speaking of surprise, was that something you totally didn't expect to happen after your win?
Oh, certainly not. I didn't expect that. I had a fan who he tweeted on Facebook saying that every time that they, see me, they always think of Cowboy Cerrone, or, because they think that I'm like the female version of Cowboy Cerrone. And he ended up tweeting back saying, well, if you're going to wear that cowboy hat, then you better fight your ass off and you better not hold back, something like that. And so we ended up tweeting back and forth, and I just said, well, it was, I can't wait to meet you one day. And then he offered, he gave me the opportunity to come down and train with him, and so we've been like private messaging back and forth. And, I think we're going to go to, Fred Jackson's gym and train there too, get some work in with Michelle Watterson and some of the other girls that are there. So I'm really excited. It's going to be an awesome week for me whenever I do go.
Now, when you hang out with the Cowboy and train with him, are you expecting to do any, he's known for kind of doing extreme sports and stuff. I know he's heading for a camp, but are you expecting to do any like rock climbing or bull riding or bunking broncos, or I don't know what that guy does. He does a whole bunch of crazy stuff. Are you expecting a lot of that too?
I hope so. I mean, I have been hearing that too, that, he's always doing something crazy and exciting, like, I'm going hunting, mountain climbing, whatever it is that he has planned. I would be happy to do that, like every time that I see his pictures on Facebook, I'm like, gosh, it looks like he's having so much, he trains hard, but he also knows how to have fun too, and I'm always training hard and I never get to have any fun. So that would be exciting to me. That would definitely be rewarding to be able to go train my ass off and then go, I don't know, mountain climbing or, water skiing, or I don't care, riding bulls, anything. That would be so much fun to me.
After this past weekend's Bellator event where they had half kickboxing and half MMA, with your background in Muay Thai, I was wondering, have you ever considered maybe taking a fight or two and trying out the Glory Ring for 1 or 2 fights?
Well, I have had a fight, with Legacy Kickboxing. I made my pro debut with them, and I fought against, my mind done went blank. She's top 10 contender in the world, Marona. I can't think of her name right now, and I know her name. It went blank. But I do still want to continue to compete in kickboxing and Muay Thai, and hopefully one day get a world title in both of those. Lindsay Moreno, that was her name.
I wanted to also get your thoughts on the concept of having like a half kickboxing, half MMA that Bellator did. Do you think that was a really cool thing that they did for the sport?
Oh yeah, I did think that was cool. I was like, taken back by it. I was like, oh, what? They're having like kickboxing and MMA at the same time? That's pretty cool. I mean, the rings were cool because Legacy did that whenever I fought for them. We just had the undercard was MMA fights, and then the main card was kickboxing, and it was such a good turnout. It was really exciting. People got a little bit of everything. They got MMA action, and then, sometimes the MMA fights can get boring if it's just, people, if you're just grappling constantly, then you can, you're forced to stand up in kickboxing. So, I mean, it's great and exciting for the crowd and people that come to watch. So I think it was really cool how they set it up with the ring, and then they had the MMA cage.
Jim Graham talking with Invicta FC flyweight fighter Andrea KGB. You can follow her on Twitter at Andrea KGB Lee, and also the same handle on Instagram. And looking over your Twitter page in preparation for this interview, I noticed you team up with a new company, at least new to me, known as Tip a Fighter. And you basically, fans can go on there and basically tip you, and depending on the amount, they can end up getting a cool prize pack. I think one of the prize packs you had was one of the T-shirts I had mentioned earlier, and some signed photos and stuff like that. And basically, can you tell people a little bit more about the Tip a Fighter and kind of how you got partnered with them?
Well, I did an interview, and the guys that I interviewed with, they were talking about it, and they helped set me up with it. And then, I talked with them, and it's pretty cool how they do it. They have it set up so that if you can go on and tip your fighter if you're happy with their performance, like the fighter's performance, and you want to throw some cash their way. You can go online, go to tipthefighter.com, and select their name and tip them. It's through PayPal, I believe. And then, even if you make a bet on the fight, so say if the fighter that you bet on wins you a bunch of money, then, if you're happy with that fighter, that you want a lot of money on them, you can take some of your money and go and tip them for it, so that's the way it works. It just, you don't have to bet on them if you're a fan of the fighter and you enjoyed their performance, then you can tip them for it. And it helps us out a lot. It helps us to get more money. Kind of like you're helping sponsor us without actually being a sponsor.
Now, one thing I wanted to ask you as well is you're from Louisiana, very proud to be from the state, and besides you, there's a couple of big-time MMA fighters that have come out of the state as well. Dustin Poirier, he's about to main event another card for the UFC in Ireland against Joe Duffy. Of course, Daniel Cormier is about to defend his UFC title next weekend over in Houston, and you're kind of leading the charge here, I guess, for the ladies of Louisiana, because I haven't seen another fighter, at least another big female fighter such as yourself, come out. And do you kind of feel proud that you're kind of the next fighter to come out of Louisiana?
Oh, sure. It's an honor to me, and I've been working hard, and I've always, since I started, I wanted to be the number one fighter in the world, but it's awesome to be the number one fighter coming out of my state, and I get a lot of recognition for it, and I'm hoping to be the next big fighter to come out from Louisiana.
Now, speaking of those two other fighters I mentioned from your home state, of course, they got some big coming fights up their way. What do you think about, we'll start with DC first, this is the most closest. What do you think about DC against Alexander Gustafsson?
I think DC, he's an extremely tough guy, and, of course, I'm pulling for him. I think it's going to be a good fight, and I think he's probably going to win. I think he's going to win. He's got my bet. I think it's going to be a good fight, though. It's going to be fun and exciting, and, Cormier's going to bring it.
Now, what are your thoughts on Dustin as he takes on Joe Duffy in his home country of Dublin, Ireland? That's got to be a tough order for anybody, let alone, even if it was here in his backyard in Louisiana.
Right, that's going to be a really, really tough fight for Dustin. Joe Duffy's a really, really tough opponent, and it's hard to say. I'm biased, I want Dustin to win. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Another thing I wanted to bring up here, I noticed on your Facebook page a couple of fans were kind of asking you, when are you going to fight for the UFC? When are you going to leave Invicta and come to the UFC? Of course, you're currently fighting at 125 pounds. That's where you've been most of your career. Obviously, you either have to jump up 10 pounds or drop 10 pounds. And just kind of looking over some of the responses, it didn't look like either way that you didn't feel comfortable going either way. So as far as moving on to another organization, would you like to stay at 125 pounds, even if that means possibly, waiting on a chance to get into an organization such as the UFC?
Yes, I would. I'm happy with my weight class, and, like 135 is too big for me. And 115, that's such a hard cut. And I'm so healthy and strong at 125. I'm one of the bigger 125ers. I feel like I can dominate in this weight class. Not saying that I couldn't in 115. It's just, a weight cut, I'm not sure how that would affect me. I know a lot of 125ers that have cut down to 115, and they have not been doing too well. Their performance has not been as well either. So I think that 125 is the best place for me. It's the best weight class. And if I have to wait for the UFC to open up a 125-pound division, then I'll wait. Right now, Invicta is treating us very well, and I'm, not in a hurry to leave.
like I said, you would wait for the opportunity to fight at what you feel the most comfortable with. And do you think just because the fact that they have a 35 and they have a 15, do you feel it's just only a matter of time to kind of get the girls in the middle that are either cutting too much weight to make 115 or feel too small at 135, and just, naturally it will be a 125 division for the UFC?
I think eventually, yes, there will be a 125 division. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, because a lot of the 125ers, a lot of the 135ers are true 125ers that are fighting in the UFC. And, and then there's a lot of 125ers that are fighting at 115. I feel like if they open up the 125 division, then you're going to have like a lot of 35ers and maybe even 15ers go back to the 125 division. So that's going to make it a lot harder for them to find fights for Ronda Rousey. So it probably will be a while before they do open up a 125 division, but I think it will happen eventually.
Speaking of Ronda Rousey, she is headlining a huge card in Australia coming up in November, UFC 193. It's also co-headlined by Joanna Jędrzejczyk as she defends her title as well. It's going to be a huge stadium show, potentially 70,000 people there in Australia. And what was just your thoughts, this huge monumental event for the UFC and also women's MMA at large?
I think it's a huge event. Anytime that women fight in the UFC, it's a big deal. I just think that, women's MMA has grown so much, and this is just going to help it to grow even more. We're fighting all over the world, and, those women that are fighting fighting for the UFC are, their fights are being televised everywhere. So, and everybody's watching, so it's going to be, it's great for women to be fighting in the UFC and overseas in different countries. I think Ronda Rousey is definitely going to win this one. I don't really think that Holly Holm is going to stand a big enough. I don't think she's a big enough threat for Ronda Rousey. I just think that once Ronda Rousey clinches her up, it's going to be over. But it's exciting, and I cannot wait to watch this fight.
Now, this fight you had here for Invicta 14 was your first fight here in 2015. Are you trying to get one more fight in before the end of the year, or do you think more likely early 2016 for your next bout?
It'll probably be for Legacy, actually. They're going to allow me to, Invicta's going to allow me to fight for Legacy at the end of December, or beginning of December, December 4th. And I believe I'll be fighting for a title shot. Right now we're just working on opponents.
One last question, I'll get you out of here with this, Andrea. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, your opponent, Rachel Ostovich, wore her Wonder Woman outfit, so obviously her favorite comic book character is Wonder Woman. But I was wondering, who is your favorite comic book character?
I've been asked that, and it's really a tough one, because I don't have a favorite. It's hard to just pick one, because there's so many to choose from. I love Wolverine's a favorite of mine, and I love, there was another, Superman. I mean, how can you not like Superman? And obviously Wonder Woman goes hand in hand with Superman. It's hard for me to choose just one. I like them all.
I'm in the same boat. If you watch the show live, you see all my comic book toys and stuff I have in the background, so obviously I have a hard time choosing which one as well. So she is Andrea KGB Lee. As I mentioned, you can follow her on Twitter at Andrea KGB Lee, same handle on Instagram. And thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to your next fight.
Thank you for having me tonight, and I look forward to being on your next show.
Once again, that was Andrea KGB Lee right here on Beyond the Cage.